Today I'm going to show you how to paint little Christmas tree decorations on wooden slices. So you can buy these off of like Amazon, places like that, probably craft stores as well. And they are literally just slices of a tree. So you have wood in the middle and then bark on the outside and a little hole drilled in the middle. So you can make a nice little rustic Christmas tree decoration, painting them with watercolors. And I'm not going to go through all the steps of how to prepare the little wooden slices. I have linked below my tutorial on how to use an absorbent ground, because this is what you use to prep it. So, but the gist is, take a couple layers of gesso, which is just like an acrylic paint primer, and then you take absorbent ground, which is an opaque acrylic primer for water media, and you do a couple layers of that, and then what you end up with is little prepped Christmas tree decorations. So we're going to start with, so for this project we're only going to use 3 colors. So we'll use ultramarine blue, we'll use sap green, and we will use alizarin crimson hue. So I'm using 2 brushes. I'll show you them right now. So there's the size 6 round Princeton and a size 10 rounds Princeton. Both are the heritage line. If you only use one, use a smaller one. Don't go any bigger for the 6 for the main part of the painting. The 10 we will just use for a wash off the beginning. And you don't need the larger one, but it does make it a little bit easier. So let's start with our wash. So we're just going to take some of the ultramarine blue, put it on the palette. You don't want it too dark, because this is just going to be the background, just so that we're not dealing with plain white. We're just going to put plain blue on all of them. And if you've painted watercolor on paper, it's a different experience painting onto this wood, even with the absorbent ground, because the paint just kind of sits on it rather than being absorbed like it does with paper. Also, you can have the odd little kind of bubbliness happening. You can see those darker spots are just some bubbles. It's okay to have the odd one of those because it adds a little bit of texture, but you want to kind of minimize it. So I just kind of go with the wood grain, and that helps. You want to paint right up to the edge so that you don't see any of that white left. Now let's do the other one. So I'm going to start a little bit darker on this one, just so you can see the difference in colors, and then you can decide which kind of how dark you want to paint it for your own painting. Now remember, with watercolors, you can't go too dark as your first layer. Oh, my cat's come to visit. You can't go too dark with your first layer, because you need to make sure that some of the light of the paper shines through your other paints. Okay, so I'm just going to just add a bit more color. See if I can get rid of some of these bubbles, because there's a few more than I would like. Just kind of spread it out. And now I'm going to let this completely dry before we move on. So I'll be back in a moment. Okay, these are completely dry now, and you'll know because they won't be cool anymore. I'm going to put this larger paintbrush to the side, because now we're just going to be using the size 6. So let's start with some holly. So let's get some of the alizarin crimson hue. You want the paint to be nice and juicy, because you want the berries to pop. So let's do 3 berries. Let's do 1 up here. Just a round shape. Let's do a second one here. So this one will touch the other berry. I want it to be round. Or roundish, I guess. And then a third one. And I'm not going to have the third one touch the first berry. I'll have it just touch the second berry. It'll be a little bit smaller than that second berry. Okay, now we're gonna leave that as the first layer for the berries. We'll come back in a minute once it's dried and finish painting the berries. But in the meantime, we can paint the holly. So we're gonna get the sap green, a little bit of water so that it flows nicely. Still want it fairly dark. Okay, now for this one, we're going to do the first leaf. We're not going to have the leaf touch the actual berries, but we're going to have it come sort of close because we don't want the paint to blend. So we want to start with drawing or painting a line. So that'll be beside the vein. We're going to leave the vein white. And then we're going to do this side of the leaf. Now, holly is just kind of like two little mountain peaks, little valley in between, and you want it to come to a point at the bottom. Now, obviously that's only half the leaf. Now, we want to do this side, and we want to leave the vein white or whitish. So we paint along here, leaving a gap of a millimeter or two. A bit more than you would, leave a bit more space than you might on paper, because the grain of the wood can kind of pull the paint. You can see the grain of the wood has pulled some of the paint, the green paint, into the red. That's okay. We just don't want too much of that. And then here we do the matching mountain, valley, mountain, come to a peak, and then fill it in. Now we're going to twist this a little. We're going to do the next leaf. So we're going to do another line, and that's where we're going to, this side is going to be where our white will be. So this side we'll do our little mountain, valley, mountain, and have it come to a point. And fill that in. Get a little bit more paint, water, just to make sure it flows nicely. And then we'll do this last side. Now I have the hole here, that's okay. We'll just paint kind of pretending the hole isn't there. You want to make sure you have 1 or 2 millimeters for that gap so that they don't come together too much. Got your mountain, valley, mountain, valley, and paint it in. Okay, now you have your first layer done, and if you want, you can leave it at that, but if you want to do a bit more kind of shaping of adding form to these, we will do another layer. So I'm just going to move this over here, and we're going to work on this one. Now, this one we're going to do not true mistletoe, but something that's mistletoe-esque, we'll say, because mistletoe has white berries, but I like the idea of the red berries popping. So we'll take some of the sap green. Now this is where, in particular, where you want to make sure you have a brush with a nice point to it, because we're going to do a stem. Now, when this hangs on your tree, it'll hang kind of like this. So you want to make sure, let's just have the stem go kind of right beside the hole that will hang, and then near the end you're going to do a leaf. And to do a leaf, just do another one and explain it as I do it. Make sure you have paint on your brush. Now go up to the stem, and we'll do another one. Press down and then lift up, and as you lift up, you get that point to your leaf. now I've done 2. Let's do a third one right here. And I'm going to have it kind of come out from behind this leaf. So press down and up. So now we have some leaves on this side, but I want some leaves on this side. And my goal after I do these leaves is to do some berries here and do some berries here that will be in between these 2 sets of leaves. So I'll show you what I mean. We'll do some leaves that start up here. So start, gently touch, press down, and lift up. Let's get that nice point. And then get a bit more on your leaf. We're going to do, or on your brush, we're going to do one more leaf. This one will kind of come out from this one, but be a little longer. Okay, there we go. Got our greens on. No greens on. Our green on for the leaves. And clean your brush off. And we're going to get some of the alizarin crimson hue. And let's start with the berries over on this side. So we're going to do a berry kind of nested near the top of these leaves. We'll do that one. And then we'll do a second one, touching that berry. And then a third one right here. Trios are always nice. We don't have to do a trio every time. Like we have 3 leaves here and 2 there, but overall we have 5 leaves. Uneven numbers tend to look nicer. Okay, and then here we're also going to do 3 berries. So we're going to do one here, and this one's going to be slightly peeking out from behind, so it doesn't end up being perfectly round. And then this, touch that berry here, and again right up against, and one more, and this one's going to be kind of free floating, and that's okay because we're going to do little stems that go to each of these berries. Okay, now before we do the stems, I'm going to let everything dry because I'm worried that if I do little green stems, it's really going to go into these this red. So let everything dry and we'll come back. So these are dry. You can feel them. They're no longer cool. So we're just going to add a little bit of finishing touches to each of these. And you don't have to do anything else, just if you would like to. So we're going to add a little bit, another layer of green to the holly leaves. So get some of the sap green on the brush. And I'm just going to go along the vein a little bit, and then clean off your brush and just kind of soften that edge. And it just gives you a little bit more shape and depth and just a little bit more interest. So we'll do on that side as well. Clean off your brush. And it also kind of flows along the grain of the wood, which gives it a little bit more interest. Okay, now we're going to do this one again along the inside of here. Clean off your brush. There we go. And one more. Make it a little bit more paint so that it'll be a little bit darker. Clean off. I dab it off, or dab the clean brush off onto a little towel just so it's not too much water as well. So that just gives a little bit more variation into the leaves. Now we're just going to add a little bit of alizarin crimson, and I'm going to take a little bit of the green in my alizarin crimson, because green and red are opposite on the color wheel. So when you mix them together a little bit, it makes a bit of a darker color. So I can add a bit of the green to the red and it makes a darker red. And I'm just going to add a little bit of shape to these. And by that, I mean just adding a little bit of the darker color on the one side. Now you can clean off your brush again. You can leave it like that if you want kind of that more dramatic shape, or you can clean off your brush and just kind of soften the edges, just gently. Now we're going to do similar on this side. So we have some fairly pale green leaves. So, oops, wrong green for my palette. Okay. We're going to take a little bit of the sap green. And we're just going to, I want to leave some of these quite light, but I do want to kind of differentiate between some of these different leaves. So I'm going to paint this leaf that's sitting below a little bit darker. So not only does it show that it's sitting below that other leaf, but it gives it a bit of interest to the whole painting. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Now I want this leaf to be underneath this other leaf, so paint it darker. And I like to add just a little bit of that extra shadow right where it would be underneath. There we go. So that makes it look a lot more interesting. Now we're going to do the same trick, taking some of that alizarin crimson hue that was mixed with a bit of the green, and we're just going to give some shape to these. So similar to the leaves, there's going to be a bit of a shadow underneath where this berry is not getting as much light because it's under a leaf. So we can add a bit of darkness there. Just want it a bit darker. There we go. And then this one, we'll say this berry, we'll say is behind this other berry, so there'll be a bit of a shadow and a bit of a shadow along here as well. And then just generally, I want a bit of a shadow there and there. I'm going to clean off my brush, kind of soften these a little. Now go back in. So this one we'll say is behind that one. Then add our shadow colors. And again, you can just leave it like that, or you can clean your brush, dry it off a touch, and just soften it a little. So that's in there. Now, the paint that I just applied is not as wet as when I did the first layer. So now I can do the little stems. So this is where you want to make sure your brush is coming to a nice point. We're going to get some of the green. You don't want too much water because we want this to be nice and sharp. So created a nice point. Just going to do quick little lines that go to each berry. They don't have to be perfect. We want them to be fairly sharp. And there we go. That's it. That's the whole process of painting little Christmas tree decorations. Now, my set came with a couple different types of twine. So I will cut a bit of these twine and tie it up, and then it'll be ready to go for the Christmas tree.